Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-Fiber One News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Good Tuesday to you. It's the 13th of October, and Spencer, good morning. How you doing, bud?
Good morning to you. What's going on today?
Well, we got a great show here on the Sheriff's Sit Down, presented by our Community Credit Union, Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, but also Chief Deputy of Investigations Jason Dracobly. He'll be on with information as much as they can share about those two arrests in California with the tie near Lake Cushman and Forest Service Road 24 that we told you about yesterday. Also, more local news and information to start your day. I was woken up a few times through the night because of all the rain. My gosh, it is just dumping buckets out there. Is this going to continue?
Yeah, I woke up last night to the sound of thunder. Oh, wait a minute, sounds like a Bob Seger song. Sorry. Some thunderstorms this morning. It's going to rain through the day. 100% chance of rain today. So, yes, it's going to be a very wet one, but tomorrow it'll clear out and we'll have some sunshine.
Mason County Public Health notified of 9 additional Mason County residents testing positive for COVID-19, bringing the total to 507 positive cases in Mason County. Hospitalized residents outside Mason County remains at 1. There are 54 active cases. The total tests performed, and this is the number that fluctuates a little bit here, 12,045. And by fluctuation, I mean between the county numbers and the Department of Health numbers. Additionally, folks are still, of course, encouraged to reduce the spread of COVID-19, wash your hands often, avoid close contact with others. And what the CDC guidelines, and we are starting to become familiar with, is 6 feet without a mask for 15 minutes. That's what they're considering close contact. Monitor your health daily, and please do what you can to avoid the spread. We're trying to really implore Kaiser when we get to the end of a destination, especially when it's home, we all, as soon as we come in, put our masks in the dirty clothes and then go right and wash our hands. And then I've been trying too, Spencer, to make sure I'm wearing my mask more often, just even by myself, to kind of just keep at it, just to keep wearing it. I don't know where you're at, kind of just in your daily, they talk about people driving by themselves. You see them wearing masks. I'm not quite there yet, but.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is at the car lot, they're very concerned, obviously, because we have a lot of people coming in and we're dealing with people in the public and each other. But there's word that there's inspectors going around to car dealerships specifically, and they're not necessarily allowed to go inside the dealership, but they look through the window. They might look like a customer, but they're really auditing you. And we were told to just wear our masks, even because our cubicles are kind of close to each other. It doesn't hurt to have it on. And just, if everyone just kind of follows the rules, I hate saying it this way, but act as if you're being watched sometimes. Act as if someone's, like the teacher's watching you when you're trying to look over at the other kid's answers, on the test or something. Just be honest and do the right thing. And, I don't want my boss to get a $15,000 fine because I'm not wearing a mask. And not only is it a financial thing, obviously, but we don't want to get people sick either. And we don't want to get sick from other people. So it's not a bad idea. There's nothing wrong with wearing it more than less. Even if you're by yourself, you're not harming anybody by wearing it.
Mason County Treasurer Lisa Frazier wanting taxpayers to know that there is no COVID-19 second half property tax due date extension. We did tell you about the first half 6 months ago. I remember when this came out 6 months ago, we were talking about this. Second half property tax payments for the year 2020 are due now on Monday, November 2nd, because the end of the month, 31st, Halloween, falls on a Saturday. There will be delinquent interest of a 1% charge starting that next day, Tuesday, Election Day, November 3rd. You can pay for the county in their drive-up property tax payment drop box. That's in the alley right next to 411 North 5th Street. coincidentally, where you can eventually drop off your ballots when you get those filled out. It's right next to there. You'll see both of those drop boxes. You can mail them in online or over the phone. There's more information on the assessor's website for the county. If you're outside Mason County, check your own county's website for details, as these tax deadlines are not the same, I don't believe, in county to county.
Bicyclists in Washington state can now slowly roll through stop signs if there's no oncoming traffic. Doing so is still a traffic violation for motorized vehicles and people on roller skates, even scooters and skateboards. The Daily Herald reports that the technique for bicyclists at intersections is called a safety stop. It allows anyone on a bike to scan the areas without stopping and keep going if there is no traffic. The new law went...
I thought these were called California stops.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I've always called it that. And of course, I spent most of my life until a couple of years ago in California, but that's what we called it. And I heard people out of California calling it that. I've never heard it called a safety stop until now.
I've never heard a safety stop. And, I've got most of my family, mom and dad's side, grew up in California and Davis and Hayward and things like that. So yeah, maybe that's the deal. The California stop.
I think so. My favorite song, and kind of they were one-hit wonder, but Men Without Hats, doing the safety stop. That's one of my favorite songs. The new. You
can stop if you want to. You can stop all over there. All right.
You could roll right through. I'm sorry. The new law went into effect on October the 1st. I said I was going to read this story without doing anything off the mark. Democratic Senator Marco Lea said the law is specific to bike riders, but that it could change for scooters that have brakes.
Well, we're still keeping our eyes on what ABC is planning to do Thursday night. It was supposed to be the second presidential debate, a town hall format with both Vice President Biden and President Trump. President Trump has declined that invitation here Thursday night. He is, I believe, off and about campaigning this week. But ABC is still planning to do some sort of presidential coverage. This is a town hall with Vice President Joe Biden. I still don't have the times on when they're doing this, but I still have plans, and I've kind of been going back and forth on this, but I think it's important regardless. I mean, it was a set debate presidential schedule, and I don't know where you're at, Spencer, but it wasn't Vice President Biden that canceled. The Presidential Debate Commission said we're just going to have to do this a different way. Yeah. So I think we'll still have the coverage on there. It's not his fault that his opponent decided to bow out of this debate, and it's up to the right of the commission, I think, to do whatever it needs for safety.
Yeah. So. No, I hear you. Nevada is paying $2.85 million more to a woman who spent almost 34 years in prison for a murder she did not commit. The state attorney general announced yesterday that Kathy Woods also received a certificate of innocence in the 1976 murder, of which she was exonerated by, something we talk about often on the show, DNA evidence. The settlement approved Friday was the third compensating Woods. She received separate settlements totaling $6 million from Washoe County in 2019. In the cities of Reno and Shreveport, Louisiana in August. Woods is now 70 and lives in the state of Washington. The National Registry of Exonerations lists her as the longest ever wrongfully incarcerated woman in American history.
Well, again, this Tuesday rolls on. We've got great conversations with the Sheriff's Sit-Down. Chief Deputy of Investigations Jason Dracobly will be here along with Sheriff Salisbury, talking about those two arrests made in California we told you about yesterday. More news on the way here throughout the morning as well. It's also apropos with the weather, Flood Awareness Week in Thurston County. And again, the Seahawks are sitting at 5-0, and their next game is coming up this weekend against the Arizona Cardinals. More news and information, conversation. It's all here on Daybreak. Good morning to you.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes here on the Daybreak Show. Time for the Sheriff's Sit-Down, presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury and Chief Deputy Investigations Jason Dracobly here today. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good to talk with you. Jason, you're here today to kind of update us on the reports of that the homicide, and then there was a couple of folks that law enforcement was looking for. Yesterday we reported they were found down in Humboldt County, California.
Yeah.
I know this is an active investigation, but give us a little bit of the background of this and how you got to that arrest down there.
Well, we got a call of a body found up on the 24 road near Highway 119. I believe that was on October 2nd, and from that point we started our investigation. We'd had a few folks tell us about a suspicious U-Haul vehicle that was in the area the day before, and one thing led to another. We were starting to able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and we ended up identifying 2 suspects out of this, and we had the assistance of the State Patrol and the FBI, and of course you saw the press release that we put out on the 2 wanted suspects, and we developed more information on that, and we were able to get down to Humboldt, California with information down to them. And between the California Highway Patrol and Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, we were able to take 2 folks into custody on 2 separate incidences down there.
Talk to me a little bit about the lead up to this. You mentioned suspicious U-Haul, and I know the Forest Service roads are traditionally not heavily utilized, so I'd imagine that when traffic comes about on those, the folks living in those areas, they keep their eyes open a little bit.
Yeah, they do. We've had a couple of folks that had contacted us early on in this and said, hey, there's some U-Haul vehicles that had been driving around in here, and we thought that was kind of odd. And that, of course, kind of keyed us in. The other thing that keyed us in was that the day before, we'd impounded one of those vehicles, and we had no idea it was related to the homicide. So we knew where that vehicle was at, and we were able to re-secure that vehicle as evidence and start our process.
And then when it comes to the identifying of those suspects, and I know you don't want to give away methods and practices and things like this, but how were you able to determine those 2 individuals as possible suspects?
Well, like I said before, I really want to protect the case, and I can't give out too much on that, not because I'm trying to hide anything. It's just they have a due process right, and I have to make sure that I don't violate that.
Okay.
So.
And then when it comes to, and Casey will bring into this as well, you have great partnerships throughout Washington State, I know, but then when it crosses state lines and it comes to these things, social media in this aspect probably helped with shares, I mean, maybe down there, and then your contacts with the Humboldt County Sheriff.
Well, we work with all different agencies depending on the cases. We actually have some detectives that are deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service. I don't know if they were used for this. We have very close ties with the Bureau, with the FBI, and contacts in our region, and for different investigative tools that they may have that we don't. And everybody, I think on this one, Jason can maybe discuss the different things, but everybody kind of comes together with their part of it to put a case together. Oftentimes other agencies will contact us, or a federal agency may contact us for something going on in our area that we may have some knowledge of that we share with them, or have some things that we can work with them.
And then when it comes to those folks down there, oftentimes you'll be requested to look for any information. People may go anywhere. Now, when it comes, is it extradition that happens next, or how did the folks get from California back here to Mason County?
Well, I don't know
So
where we're at in that right now.
there's 2 active arrest warrants for those 2 suspects right now.
Uh-huh.
And they're arrested down there. They'll be heard down there in their courts for the initial sets of hearings, and then there'll be an extradition hearing set up for them. They can waive it or they can argue it. If they argue it, then there'll be a process that you'd have to get specific with the prosecutor on it, but a governor's warrant has to be issued. It takes some time, and then they're transferred back up through what's called the local chain. If they waive it, then they come up on the local chain, and we go from there.
And then back to kind of the beginnings of this, when you received calls and some suspicious vehicles up there. Talk to me a little bit about more what the Sheriff's Office is recommending for folks when they see something to say something. Is that still kind of a common practice?
Well, if there's something suspicious that you know, I mean, I don't know who called on this, but that's kind of how everybody, somebody sees something and reports it, or there's some information out there that we might be looking for that they may have an idea on. You mentioned a few minutes ago, that sometimes there's pieces of information or requests that we put out internet-wise. There are times when we'll put out a piece of information that we might be looking for, a few years ago, a different case, on a certain type of vehicle, and you put it out, and somebody says, well, I saw that vehicle the other day out in this area, and it starts to narrow down pretty quickly. Sometimes that public help can be very necessary and very useful. I think on these cases, what I like, and it's been a long time since I've done investigations. I worked with a great Dave Haller, a great investigator, the more senior guy to me when I started. Dave used to always tell me with that very first piece of information, when it's at the crime scene or what it is, Dave used to always tell me it's a piece of a puzzle. You always kind of look for that corner piece first, and you start putting things together. And as you get one piece, you somewhat can tell what the other shape of the other one needs to be or where you need to go. And by the time you finish that puzzle, you might have all but one piece left. And sometimes that piece of information that you might have seen something, might be the piece that we're looking for. We might need to find a vehicle in a certain area, and you might be like, well, I saw that vehicle parked there in this area, and then we go back and we'll look at a camera or something, and there it is. And it starts off with one piece, like Jason said, and I don't know all the steps that they took this time or where it took them, but it starts off like a puzzle. And it's one piece at a time. And as you start to put the puzzle together, it gets a little easier because you can see how the picture's starting to develop. And that's what I think of as a case when you're working that in the detective division. And sometimes different people have different pieces, or they see something differently, they can put it in there for you. And then pretty soon, by the time you're done with the investigation, you have a clear picture of what happened.
An important case to let the public know about, and further goings-ons down now in Humboldt County. Amazing to think about that. Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, Chief Deputy of Investigations Jason Dracobly here during the Sheriff's Sit-Down presented by our Community Credit Union. Thanks for the update on this, guys, and the information there. And, of course, whenever more information comes out about anything, really, come on in.
Thanks for having us.
You're listening to Daybreak on I-Fiber News Radio.
Again, good Tuesday to you, 13th of October. So we've been doing a lot of these like subscription boxes. The grandparents have helped us with Kaiser's education in some of these subscription boxes. And there is one that's like a cooking box. So every month or every 2 weeks or something, he gets this box in the mail, and it's got kid approved recipes. It came with an apron and like a measuring cup, and it kind of helps. Yeah. And it kind of gets him confident in the kitchen. Last week was National Fire Protection Association's Fire Prevention Week, but it's still important information. This topic today is serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Now, it's important to note that cooking is one of the leading causes of fires in our state, and the fire marshal's office for the whole state wants to emphasize some methods to keep kids safe, and they want to keep a kids-free zone around the stove when it's hot and active from 3 feet for the kids, because you can, especially on kind of these glass countertops, you don't necessarily see the heat. Whereas with a propane or natural gas, you can see the flames there. Turn pot and pan handles inward so they can't be easily knocked off or pulled down. That's a good one too, just in general as you're walking by. And the other one is adults supervising cooking to determine what is safe for budding chefs. And I think in each home it would be different. If a child has very early experience with cooking in the kitchen, they may feel a little more comfortable. We have some plastic knives that Kaiser is able to use that do a good job of cutting up things. Just kind of reminder there. But the overall theme is to just be safe in the kitchen and watch those open flames, not only for kids, but also for adults. So we go from fire safety in the kitchen to flood awareness in Thurston County. This week, Flood Awareness Week in Thurston, and county leaders encouraging residents to prepare for winter storms that can bring floods. You got to check your emergency kits, make those plans with your family members, and think about this, flood insurance, because listen to this, Sandy Ecker, Thurston County Emergency Management Manager, reminds us that there's usually a 30-day waiting period once you make your first premium payment for that flood insurance to become realized. Oh. And did you know, in Thurston County, annual rainfall is about 50 inches a year, and that's the most common natural hazard in Thurston County. And so I'm sure Mason County mirrors that pretty close, but that is a lot of rain. And again, we talked yesterday about the storm drains and then water over the roadways. If you find yourself about to drive over water over roadway, be cautious because you don't know what happened underneath that roadway.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting too with the gutters, we were talking about cleaning your gutters at home, is that is kind of the double issue there. It's a fire hazard, but it's also a flooding hazard too, because you've got during the fire season when that thing builds up, you get some embers in there, you could lose your whole house. And then in the winter, when they're plugged up, you just end up with water just pouring everywhere and collecting in areas very quickly. Yeah,
and if your gutters, if it gets too filled up, my gutters, the downspout got covered, and so the water filled up. And it could have easily just ripped the whole gutter right off the side of the house. So
yeah,
there's a lot of gutter maintenance that can do a lot of good for the longevity of your home. So just something to remember there. More Daybreak Show coming up. Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on iFiber One News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.